So I'll just make.
Welcome. We're happy to have everyone join us today. I am Mary Lou Fritz. I am a volunteer with Advocates for Silenced Turkey. I had the privilege as a university professor to travel to Turkey in 2014 and met a number of wonderful people there. And in fact, we were able to spend some time in Samsun. My husband and I were there with a group of folks that were interacting with the universities there. One of the great privileges we also had was to stay with our guest today, Dr. Farhat Öztürk, and his wife in Samsun. It was a fabulous opportunity, but unfortunately, not everybody or very few people are getting those kind of opportunities now, especially for the universities that we were able to visit and the people that we were able to visit. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about those conditions in Turkey in terms of the political prisoners and specifically the political prisoners in Samsun. And so, Dr. Öztürk, could you briefly tell us about the persecutions of academicians, especially after July 15th, 2016?
Okay, thank you so much, Mary. It's great to see you after a long while. So I'm so honored to be your guest today. And as you mentioned, I'll be speaking on behalf of Scholars' Rights Watch, which is an organization to raise awareness about the persecutions of academicians in Turkey. So one of our major purpose as SRW, Scholars' Rights Watch, is to provide reports and to make historical reports for the future generations when they need to study. So according to one of our major reports, there's a huge academic decline in Turkey after the July 15, 2016. So there were more than 8,000 academicians were fired from their jobs. So it's a huge number. About 1/3 of the professors, the top lines, were fired. And then as a result of this one, some of the universities has lost their rankings about 200%. So in the past, we had there are about like 5 or 6 universities from Turkey in the top 500 universities in the world, but right now there's only 1 or even less. So which means that the universities, after firing more than 8,000 academicians, and majority of them, they could not return to their positions. Some of them were lucky enough to leave the country freely. Some of them had to flee the country through the borders, and some of them were not lucky enough and they were imprisoned. So thousands of academicians, including professors, university presidents, deans, associate professors, assistant professors, and a lot of people from the administration of the universities, unfortunately, they have been jailed. But this number is not limited to academicians. There are more than 150,000 people were jailed in Turkey following July 15, 2016. And among them, there are teachers, doctors, military officers, police officers, like homemakers, seniors, and elderly people. So even the babies, there are about 800 babies in Turkish jails right now with their moms. So unfortunately, this is a very heartbreaking thing happening in Turkey, that there is a huge persecution going against the Gülen movement, the members of the Hizmet movement or the Gülen movement in Turkey. And again, academicians was one part of it. And as I was able to leave the country in August 2016, and I returned to the United States. And right now I'm a teacher, a biomedical science teacher at a high school. And meanwhile, I'm also volunteering for University of Texas, San Antonio. I'm doing my research in the field of biomedicinal honey. Meanwhile, I'm an activist, and I'm working for the Scholars' Rights Watch, who is a branch of the Advocates of Silenced Turkey.
Wow, that's a lot of people jailed. And being at least somewhat familiar with your story, I can only imagine the other stories that have gone on in this and the persecution. I very clearly remember being in Samsun at the university where you worked. And outside of the absolutely wonderful and gracious hospitality that you and your wife's mother provided us when we were there, including getting fans for us because we were way too hot. One of the things that I really remember and was really struck by was the research that you were doing and your research partners in medicinal honey. And this was especially fascinating for me because I was raised on a ranch in the United States and we had beehives. So I knew a lot about honey, or I thought I did, until I saw that all the stuff that you guys were doing there. And I remember being in the lab with you and students and with Professor Yunus Bekdemir, who was also the president of the university there. He is, my understanding, one of those who is actually imprisoned in Samsun, and that the conditions in the Samsun prison have not been good. And in fact, there is a huge amount of COVID going on there.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on with Professor Bekdemir and the persecution process, and especially what is going on with COVID and what we really need to be seeking to have happen?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, this is like Professor Yunus Bekdemir. He is imprisoned since September 2016. So he is in prison for about 4.5 years. And despite his dire health conditions, he got an infectious surgery, and that year he got his gallbladder was removed, and then he got infection before the imprisonment, and also he was diagnosed with hypertension, so high blood pressure, and in addition he was also had sleep apnea. So the obstructive sleep apnea, so he can only sleep with the help of a CPAP machine, I mean the air pressure machine. So it took a long while, I mean, to get that machine into the prison. So he had a lot of difficulties, and also the conditions of the prison in Samsun, which was an old prison, I mean, their heating and cooling system were pretty bad. And then they moved to a new prison, but the new prison was also incomplete or not complete the structure when they moved, so it was so cold in the winter. So he went through all these difficulties despite his health conditions. And on the other hand, all these things happened because of a false accusation of an informant. So unfortunately, in Turkey, people are just like, making false allegations about each other or about their previous colleagues, so that they just, let them stay in jail for a long while. And on the other hand, Professor Bekdemir, he's a well-known figure in Samsun, Turkey, because he was a professor of chemistry in Samsun for like more than 20 years. So he's well-known at the 19 Mayıs University, which is the major state university there. So, and then he also has his PhD from Essex University in England. So he has a very good background, like he is a high-profile academician. So he had a lot of publications in the organic chemistry field. So, and in terms of human relations, I mean, he has very good relations with the, with the elites of Samsun, because he was able to fundraise, because he was the founding president of Cengiz Başarı University as well. So in 2012. So as he was the founding president, he was able to collect a lot of endowments for the university. So he's a well-known figure by the governor, by the mayor, I mean, by the university presidents, and also like the people in there. So because of his profile, I mean, he's kind of held captive in the jail since 2016. So his health conditions, despite his several applications to be released, unfortunately, he was not released. And even after his sentencing, like his trial was finished, so he was sentenced for 9 years and 6 months. So, and he applied for appealing, I mean, he appealed to the decision, and the decision is still pending in the appellate court. So, which means that in Turkey, when the decision is pending in the appellate court, you can be judge. You can be tried without imprisonment. So he can easily be sent to home, and then within a controlled parole, so he can just be tried from that one because he doesn't have any risk, and he doesn't have an opportunity to leave the country during the trial. But unfortunately, now these things has applied to him. And recently, about a week ago, so we heard that he was diagnosed with COVID-19. So I was able to contact his family members, and then not only him, but about more than 100 inmates, both male and female inmates, were diagnosed with COVID-19. So it's a big number, and then that spread has happened in less than a week, and at least 4 of them have been intubated. So they are in the ICU. So those people are just like, it's a life and death condition, and I'm kind of alarmed when I heard this, and I said we have to do something now or never. So this was the only, a great, opportunity for us to raise awareness about the dire conditions that's happening in Samsun prison and also the other prisons too. So not only Professor Yunus Bekdemir, but also our Vice President for Social Services and also our Executive Director of the university, they are also in jail for about 4 years right now.
Wow, those are rough conditions without having COVID, and then getting COVID on top of it, especially with the health conditions that Professor Bekdemir has, that becomes an even higher risk in that. So as you are looking at this and as you are thinking about this and communicating with his family and with the other families over there of those who are political prisoners, but specifically as we think about Professor Bekdemir, what are the things that people who are listening and watching today can do to help advocate for Professor Bekdemir and also for other political prisoners there? Especially, none of them are going to be at risk for flight. They're not at risk in terms, I would not think, of being a danger to society. It's not like they murdered someone and they might do it again. So what can people do to help here?
First of all, I just would like to clarify one thing about the political prisoners in Turkey. As the COVID-19 pandemic started last year in March 2020, so there was a law passed by the Turkish parliament. And according to the law, to decrease the number of the prisoners, there was in April 14, 2020, so the law passed, and that they wanted to decrease the number of the prisoners so they can avoid the spread of the COVID-19 in prisons. And this law was embracing the murderers, the rapists, the mafia leaders, the fraudsters, kidnappers, all the high-profile, inmates. They were released according to this law, other than the political prisons. And these political prisons were only for those people who are like criticizing the government, or even not even criticizing, but just not supporting the government. So unfortunately, this is the result of an autocratic government in Turkey right now. And the freedom of speech is not applicable at all in Turkey. Even if you look at the numbers of the journalists jailed in Turkey, about 150 journalists actively in prison right now for several years. And so, which means that people cannot talk, cannot think, against the government or criticize the government. So many people are jailed because of their tweets on the Twitter. So they just say something against or just criticizing Erdogan or the government himself. So this is a very dire, very restricted condition in Turkey. So what we can do is, in terms of in the global perspective, we can ask our, especially the people in the United States or in Europe. So we can ask our lawmakers to apply some pressure to control not control, but at least help the people, the political prisoners in Turkey by applying, some measures or some, restrictions to the Turkish government so that they can, enhance the human rights in Turkey, and they can prevent the violations. And because there are so many tortures going on as well, like more than 100 people died in this time. So many people, like hundreds of people were tortured. So all these things are recorded by the European authorities and the United States, the human rights organizations. But unfortunately, not so many things can be done. But in specifically for Professor Yunus Bekdemir, we have initialized, as Scholars Right Watch, we initialized a signature campaign in the change.org. So if I can share my screen, I'll just show the website. And it's also, I think it was also put under the YouTube description. So let me share it real quick. Okay. Yeah, so this is our website, the Save Professor Yunus Bekdemir from COVID-19 Prison. I mean, thank God we have about 1,880 people signed about this. So we are, after this signature is done, and I just want to read with you, we call for immediate release of Basari University's President Yunus Bekdemir, Provost Murat Yucel, and Vice President for Social and Cultural Affairs Harun Basaran, as well as that of about 100 detainees in Samsun prison who tested positive for COVID-19 last week, suffered from numerous health conditions, and deprived of proper medical care in prison. So we just want our, the audience to sign this petition, and then we will send it to the authorities in Turkey, like the Minister of Justice, the Governor of Samsun, and as well as the Director of the Samsun prison, and other authorities that can help to relieve the conditions of Professor Yunus Bekdemir and his colleagues in jail. So this will be highly appreciated in these dire conditions of the COVID-19 spread.
So we're strongly encouraging people to go to change.org, to sign the petition, and then to also share it on social media to encourage other people to sign the petition, to raise the awareness about the human rights conditions of the academicians and the journalists, and especially, heart for me, moms with babies who are in prison in Turkey as political prisoners, not as people who have been violent or who have done anything that in other societies would be jailable. So go to change.org, sign the petition, and then share it and encourage your social networks on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever you social, to help address this and to help move this forward in the very immediate. So right now there is an urgency around those in the Samsun prison, especially with those with COVID, and strongly encourage our listeners to reach out and work to make a difference in this situation. Anything else you want to add here?
I mean, again, I would like to really thank you for this opportunity. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, to be honest, because we don't know what will happen. Again, this is a life and death condition. So many people, as of this week, we heard, we read in the news, there are 500,000 people died in the United States because of COVID-19. It's not a joke. I mean, it is killing people, and especially when it is in jail and in the prison, and when it is for the high-risk population, the risk is increasing, and those people has to take taken care of very quickly. And then, those people needs to be released for home confinement, which is something very easily to be done under the same law. So we definitely urge the authorities in Turkey, to step forward to release these people in Samsun prison as soon as possible. And again, thanks for our audience. For this support. And this is once you can do in your life. When it's gone, it's gone. So just please, we really encourage the people to sign the petition as soon as possible and spread it in their networks. And the most important part is pray for us. Everything is in the hand of God, and then He is the one that will change all the conditions in a snap of a moment. So please keep us and keep those prisoners in your prayers day and night, and hopefully prayers will also change the things beyond our expectations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ferhat. Our prayers are with you and your family, and very particularly with those who are in the Samsun prison and who are wrongly imprisoned in Turkey right now. So thank you.
Thank you.